What if I told you that some of the most beautiful gardens in the world are built from trash? In this video, you won't just see recycled projects, you'll witness transformations so magical they could come straight from a European fairy tale. Welcome to Backyard Fortune, a channel where we turn forgotten scraps into living beauty. This video is packed with over 10 garden DIYs you can actually recreate at home. Don't forget to use the timestamps to skip to the ones you love. And if you have a question or idea, drop it in the comments below. We're here for it. One, enchanted bottle borders for a European garden glow. In a quiet corner of Europe where the sun stretches low and golden, something magical is blooming, not from a nursery or designer garden center, but from what most would call trash. Old bottles, forgotten pans, plastic containers once destined for landfills, they now live again, reborn in one of the most enchanting backyard transformations you've ever seen. Here, a winding garden path sparkles under the afternoon light. Look closer, and you'll see it's lined with dozens of upcycled green plastic bottles. Each one is sunk gently into the earth, forming a soft, wavy border that leads you through beds of lavender, daisies, and strawberries. The way the light hits those bottle curves, it almost looks like emeralds kissed by the sun. Butterflies dance freely between blooms, and everything feels still, yet deeply alive. Just a few steps away, another part of this fairytale garden tells a different story. A rainbow of bottle pieces, painted and trimmed, are arranged into charming circular beds. Bright red, blue, yellow, and green edges wrap gently around tomato bushes, marigolds, and clusters of plump blueberries. White pebbles accent each planter like icing on a homemade cake. It doesn't just look cheerful, it radiates care. The kind of care only a handmade garden can hold. And just when you think it can't get more imaginative, you find yourself walking a gravel path between rows of young apple trees. The border? Crystal clear plastic jugs, standing tall and clean like silent sentinels, reflecting sunlight like glass. These recycled bottles form protective walls for vibrant strawberry patches and herbal greens. At the end of the path, baskets sit on a rustic wooden table, overflowing with freshly picked cherries and deep red currants. It feels like a harvest day from a storybook you once read, now made real. But this isn't just about how beautiful it looks, it's about what's possible. All these ideas? They're real, achievable, made with patience, simple tools, and materials you probably already have at home. Don't rush to throw away that soda bottle. Look at it again. Imagine it as the glowing edge of your garden bed, a marker for your herbs, or even a protective fence for delicate plants. Paint it, cut it, or leave it as is. Its shape, its strength, its story can still serve the earth. The secret isn't in the material. It's in how you see it. If we treat trash like treasure, if we give our gardens just a little more heart and a little less waste, we don't just grow flowers and food, we grow joy, resilience, and wonder. This garden may seem like a fairy tale, but everything you've seen here can be made with your own hands. One bottle, one idea, one beautiful corner at a time. So the next time you reach for the bin, pause. What if, instead, you reached for a shovel? Two, Whimsical tin can win chimes and planters for fairytale gardens. Sometimes, the smallest breeze carries the most beautiful surprise. In this little garden, somewhere quiet, somewhere filled with love, an orchestra of tin cans hangs gently under the wooden beams. They are painted in bright pastels and bold primaries, adorned with hearts and dots and childlike joy. And when the wind comes, they dance. Not just visually, but musically. Bells chime, beads rattle softly, and it feels as if the garden itself is humming a lullaby. Each of these cans once held soup, coffee, tomatoes. Now, they hold sound, color, life. A few steps away, beneath the same golden sun, more of these once-forgotten containers swing gently from ropes. But this time, they cradle basil, mint, cherry tomatoes, even strawberries. The cans have been painted lovingly, each with vines and blooms, transforming them into stories that hang from the sky. There's something honest and deeply human about it, a blend of function and art that's both playful and practical. And still, deeper in this space, the tone shifts to something quieter, more reflective. Here, polished tin cans hang in a row, unpainted, simple, elegant. Holes have been carefully punched in the shape of stars and leaves, casting tiny, flickering shadows as sunlight passes through. Below each can dangles an old spoon, catching the breeze and clinking gently. It's less a decoration and more a conversation with the wind. Minimal, timeless, and undeniably magical. What makes this entire scene so powerful is not just the beauty, but the transformation. It's the idea that something discarded can become something deeply meaningful. That an old soup can, when seen through a lens of creativity and care, can become a melody, a garden bed, or a work of art. That you don't need a large budget to build something extraordinary, you just need to look at ordinary things differently. These DIYs aren't just decorations. They are acts of hope. They are small revolutions of joy. And they remind us that a garden isn't just what grows from the soil, but what grows from the heart. So if you have empty cans at home, don't let them go to waste. Let them become music. Let them bloom. Let them tell your story. Mosaic magic, DIY broken dish garden art with European charm. There is a kind of quiet poetry in broken things. Out here in the garden, beneath the open sky, forgotten porcelain plates and cracked tiles have found their voice again, not in the kitchen, but along the edges of a cobbled path. Lavender brushes against their delicate surfaces, and sprigs of thyme peek through the tiniest spaces between them. These are not mistakes left behind. These are mosaics of memory, placed with intention. The once flawless china now carries stories etched in floral prints, softened by time and sunlight. And as you walk along this handmade border, the scent of warm earth and herbs surrounds you like a familiar song. Further on, the path leads you to a wall that might once have been ordinary. But now, it sings. Adorned with swirling vines and birds, the bricks have been transformed into a sweeping mural made entirely from broken dishware and mirror shards. Plates, bowls, colored tiles, each one carefully arranged to create something alive, joyful, and full of movement. Look closely and you'll see stars and sky, branches and feathers, all whispering together in a language only gardens understand. Beneath the mural, neat rows of vegetables thrive in the soil, nurtured by the same hands that turned brokenness into beauty. And still, the magic continues. In a grassy orchard, sunlight dances over a trail of circular mosaic stepping stones. Each one is inlaid with pieces of vintage porcelain, teacup handles, and glinting mirror glass. The shapes curve like petals, arranged in gentle mandalas beneath apple trees heavy with fruit. Butterflies skip from flower to flower, pausing just long enough to rest on the glass. These steps don't just guide your feet, they guide your spirit too, asking you to slow down, breathe deeply, and see the wonder in what was once discarded. The beauty of this idea is not in perfection, it's in the layers of life it carries. If you have broken plates tucked away, or a box of chipped cups you couldn't bear to throw out, this is your invitation. Don't wait for perfect pieces. Let the imperfect ones tell your garden's story. Let their cracks be filled with soil, their surfaces touched by rain. With a little mortar, a bit of patience, and an open heart, you can create spaces that feel sacred, healing, and wholly your own. Here, trash becomes treasure. Not because it's flawless, but because it's full of soul. So gather the fragments. Let them bloom again, not on a table, but on your path, your walls, your earth. Because in the right hands, even broken pieces can grow something beautiful. Four, rustic bamboo and scrap wood borders that beautify any backyard. There is something profoundly comforting about a fence made not from perfection, but from story. In this garden, tucked away in a quiet countryside corner, bamboo poles rise from the grass like quiet guardians of the harvest. They don't match. Some are slim, others thick. Some lean gently. But each is tied with natural jute, creating soft curves that frame neat beds of lettuce, rosemary, and tiny carrots just peeking from the soil. Along the edges, taller wooden posts appear, etched with hand-carved symbols, runes, or simple marks left by time. Small birds perch briefly, as if drawn by the warmth of wood that once lived as something else. This isn't just a fence, it's a boundary with soul. As you walk further, the material shifts. Now, it's old timber. Boards of reclaimed wood stand upright like forgotten soldiers, each weathered differently. Faded paint flakes in blues, whites, and greens that once decorated windows or garden benches. The planks rise and fall in height, following no strict rule, just rhythm. Behind them, sunflowers stretch tall, and gooseberry bushes peek through like shy children at play. The path curves alongside, lined with stone and shaded by an old apple tree heavy with fruit. It's a scene you might pass in silence, but feel deeply in your chest. And then, back to bamboo again. This time, it's more refined, cut to equal length, each piece upright and bound with care. The fence surrounds an herb patch in full bloom, mint, oregano, parsley, and lavender buzzing with butterflies. The structure is so simple, so gentle in its intent, that it almost disappears into the garden itself. But it holds everything. It brings form to the wild. It gives protection without walls. This kind of design doesn't ask for money. It asks for presence. If you have leftover bamboo from an old trellis, don't throw it away. Cut it clean, bind it with jute, and give it a new life in the soil. If there's a pile of wooden boards in your garage, flaking, warped, and written off, see them not as trash, but as chapters waiting to be read again. Because when you build borders like this, you aren't just organizing your garden. You're grounding yourself. You're letting your outdoor space breathe with intention, with memory, and with your own quiet creativity. And maybe, just maybe, the birds will come and sing a little longer. Five, upcycled bucket planters for old world garden allure. Some of the most magical gardens aren't made from what we buy, but from what we choose not to throw away. In this quiet cobblestone corner, an old zinc bucket, scratched and softened by time, cradles pink geraniums and vines of ripening strawberries. Beside it, a vintage enamel basin gently holds sprigs of mint and parsley. The The scent is earthy and sweet. A single bee drifts lazily past, and the light flickers through trailing grape leaves overhead. It doesn't take much to build beauty, just a little patience, a handful of seeds, and a forgotten pail from the past. These aren't store-bought planters. They were once tools of another life. Buckets that carried water, basins that once cleaned linens. Now, they overflow with color, with fruit, with purpose. Elsewhere, in a sun-drenched courtyard, we find a humble harvest blooming from stacked crates and weathered tubs. Tomatoes cluster like tiny jewels, peppers grow plump and proud, and basil spills over the edges of their galvanized homes. Each container is different. Some dented, some rust-kissed, but all transformed. Lavender and thyme flank the edges, their fragrance catching on the wind. This is a garden made not from perfection, but from love. Every reused container tells a story of care, of reuse, of simple, old-world ingenuity. And along a garden wall, the charm continues. Tin buckets dangle like lanterns, planted with nasturtiums, herbs, and bright strawberries that seem to glow in the early light. Moss creeps across the stone, and ivy dances upward like it's part of the rhythm of the land. These little hanging gardens are both decoration and delight, proof that even a small space can bloom if we give it a chance. So here's your quiet invitation. Look again at what you were going to throw away. A rusty pail. An old wash basin. An empty corner near your wall. With a bit of soil, a splash of water, and your own gentle touch, you can bring it to life. Because a magical garden doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be yours. Six, vintage suitcase planters overflowing with garden goodness. Once upon a morning touched by soft light and the gentle rustle of leaves, something unexpected blooms beneath an old oak tree. Not a flower bed, not a store-bought pot, but a leather suitcase, its travels long behind it, now bursting with life. Scarlet cherry tomatoes spill over its edges, catching the sun like jewels. Fresh mint stretches toward the breeze, and alpine strawberries peek out shyly from between leaves. It's as if the earth whispered into the suitcase's seams, "Stay with us," and the suitcase listened. These once-forgotten travel companions now carry stories of renewal instead of destinations. Further along the garden path, a wooden bench rests beside a cottage wall, worn with years but full of charm. Upon it are stacked two more suitcases, one wrapped in floral tapestry, the other weathered and cracked like the bark of an ancient tree. They don't hide their age, instead, they wear it proudly, each scuff and stitch a mark of character. Daisies dance in the top suitcase, joined by purple pansies whose petals catch the light just so. Below, herbs like parsley and arugula bloom with purpose. Strawberries dangle over the edge, waiting for a curious child or a passing bee. And then there's the orchard that fits in a case. Nestled beside a stone wall that overlooks rolling vineyards, another suitcase opens like a secret. This one bears old travel stickers and the scent of thyme and oregano. From within rise fig saplings and a stout little blueberry bush, their roots grounded in what was once a vessel for shirts and shoes. Now, it holds something far more nourishing, possibility. These gardens are more than decoration, they are declarations. They tell us we don't need perfect tools or expensive materials to grow beauty. An old suitcase, some soil, seeds, and intention are enough. And the magic is not just in how they look, but in what they mean. That the end of one purpose is not the end of usefulness. That waste, when seen through a creative lens, becomes wonder. That a cracked zipper or a rusty latch can still open wide to hold something beautiful. If you're thinking of trying something new in your backyard or even on a balcony, this is your sign. Begin with what you already have. Look at that suitcase in your attic, that box tucked under the stairs, that corner of forgotten things, and imagine. Then add soil. Add seeds. Add care. The rest will grow. Let this be the start of your own story, not of departure, but of arrival, into a slower, gentler, and more magical way of living with the earth. Seven. Seashell and pebble garden paths with coastal European touch. There's a kind of magic that lives quietly at the edges of a garden, where sea meets soil, and humble materials whisper stories of transformation. Imagine this, a forgotten basket of old seashells, a pile of dusty pebbles from a beach trip long past, and a garden corner waiting patiently for love. Now imagine using these simple treasures, not to decorate, but to enchant. Here, beneath the olive trees and lavender bushes, a path begins. White pebbles trace a gentle curve through the earth like a ribbon unfurling toward the sea. At your feet, seashells form blooming patterns, petals of coral and scallop, edges kissed with time. Each step feels like a memory. Each stone, a soft echo of tide and sun. Not far from there, a lane of scallop shells glistens like ivory steps between fig trees and raspberry vines. Blue pebbles and spiraled shells are tucked lovingly into the earth, creating a rhythm underfoot that dances with texture and color. Children laugh in the background, their bare feet skipping across the shells as if they've always belonged there. The garden smells like ripening fruit, and the breeze carries both laughter and the faint salt of the sea. Further on, an arched trellis drips with grapevines, and beneath it, another path. This one glows in the morning light. Coral fragments nestle between fan-shaped shells. Lemon balm and nasturtiums spill from either side like they've grown there for centuries. A tin bucket sits casually nearby, brimming with strawberries just picked from the morning dew. There is no rush here, only the slow, satisfied hum of nature in harmony. These aren't just garden borders. They're stories you can walk through. They're proof that beauty doesn't have to come from a store. It can be pieced together from things once deemed useless. With a little imagination, and perhaps a shell or two, you can transform even the plainest garden corner into something truly unforgettable. And you don't need to live by the sea. All you need is intention, patience, and the joy of turning trash into something quietly wonderful. Let this be your invitation. Go ahead, gather those pebbles, shells, and bits you thought had no purpose. Lay them gently into your garden soil. Shape them into pathways and borders. Let the rhythm of the earth and the spirit of the sea guide your hands. Because sometimes, the most magical transformations start not with what you buy, but with what you choose not to throw away. Eight. Cutlery and chopping board garden decor with rustic cottage flair. They say the kitchen is the heart of the home. But what if your old forks, spoons, and cutting boards, weathered from years of use, could find new life not in a drawer, but under the open sky, cradled by the breeze, kissed by sunlight? In the quiet corner of a backyard, somewhere between the scent of basil and the hum of bees, everyday kitchen tools have transformed into something magical. This is not just a garden. This is a story of forgotten objects finding purpose again. A tale of rustic charm carved into wood, a whisper of Europe's countryside echoing through each handmade touch. Against a simple wooden fence, Herb names are handwritten across painted chopping boards. Mint, basil, thyme, each one a gentle reminder of homegrown simplicity. Forks and spoons, now twisted with care, cradle terracotta pots bursting with green. Together, they create a vertical wall of life, functional, poetic, and completely made from items most people would have tossed away. Around the garden gate, the air carries the sound of wind chimes, spoons and ladles dancing softly as they catch the breeze. Hanging below faded pastel boards are engraved silhouettes of herbs and flowers, turning a simple gate into a whimsical welcome. It's as if you're stepping into a secret fairytale pantry, where the vegetables hum lullabies and strawberries spill into the gravel path like nature's confetti. And under the dappled shade of a tree, the earth itself becomes a table for repurposed boards. Some are etched with vegetables, others adorned with painted onions, tomatoes, and pumpkins. Forks pierce the soil, not to be discarded, but to stand proud, marking plants, anchoring memories. Here, the garden becomes a gallery. Each piece a tribute to hands that cook, soil that nurtures, and the quiet dignity of reuse. What makes this truly special is not just the visual charm, but the message it carries. Beauty doesn't need to come from a store. It can rise from what you already have. That old fork set with mismatched handles. The scratched cutting board from Grandma's kitchen. The wooden spoons that stirred 100 soups. These aren't trash. They are tools of transformation. Try it yourself. Wander into your kitchen. Open the drawers. Feel the weight of what you thought was useless. Then imagine them outside, repainted, repurposed, reborn. Let your garden be a canvas where the past meets the present. Where spoons cradle seedlings, and cutting boards guide herbs home. In this world we build, one board, one fork, one plant at a time, we discover that magic isn't hidden. It's handmade, and it begins with the courage to see beauty where others see waste. Nine, Winter Garden Wonders, DIY snow-enhanced recycled features. Beneath a soft dusting of snow, when the garden hushes into a peaceful stillness, magic begins to bloom in unexpected forms. In this enchanted corner of the world, winter doesn't mean an end, it simply invites us to look closer. Along the snowy path, old mason jars and tin cans, once destined for the bin, now flicker with warm candlelight. They stand like silent guardians, lining the walkway with a quiet, golden rhythm. Each vessel, carefully reused and filled with soft flame, transforms into a lantern of memory, glowing against the frost, whispering that even in the coldest seasons, warmth can be handmade. And just off the trail, a forgotten kettle, rusted and worn, cradles a bouquet of hardy pansies, defying the chill with color and cheer. Elsewhere in the snow-kissed garden, sculptures rise from the white, sunbursts made from broken mirrors, repurposed cutlery, and bottle shards. Their reflections dance in the pale winter light, casting glimmers across the frozen ground. These are not just garden ornaments, they are tributes to resilience and imagination. A galvanized bucket brims with holly and scarlet berries, a vibrant punctuation in the snow, while a tidy stack of firewood sits under a simple metal bench, crowned with a sign that reads garden. It's not just a word here, it's a promise. That beauty lives on, even when the world turns white. And then there's the table, a simple wooden bench, now turned into a winter still life. Plates no longer used for meals become part of a living arrangement, each layered with pine cones, rosemary, and slices of dried orange. There's an old enamel pot holding vintage dishware and garden cuttings like it's hosting a festive banquet for birds and memories. Next to it, Tiny fir trees in repurposed tin buckets twinkle with fairy lights, offering joy to anyone who wanders close enough to notice. This isn't just about recycling. It's about reclaiming wonder. A cracked mirror becomes a starburst. A rusted kettle becomes a cradle for life. A forgotten plate becomes the centerpiece of a snow-covered celebration. In every corner of this garden, something discarded has been made sacred again. Tip for dreamers: if you're looking to craft your own winter garden wonderland, begin with what you already have. Old jars, tin cans, broken crockery, none of it needs to be perfect. Add a candle. Add a sprig of green. Add your heart. Even a single flicker of light against the snow can tell a story. Let your neighbors wonder how your garden glows when everything else sleeps. And when they ask, don't just tell them it's DIY. Tell them it's a little bit of magic, saved from the trash, brought back to life by your hands. Because in winter, what matters isn't just what grows. It's what glows. (10) Hanging pot and pan fruit planters for storybook garden corners. Have you ever paused before tossing out an old frying pan or rusted saucepan, wondering, could this still hold beauty? In the quiet corners of Europe's most whimsical gardens, there's a secret unfolding. A transformation. One where yesterday's cookware becomes tomorrow's living poetry. Beneath a leafy pergola, under the golden hush of afternoon light, pots and pans from forgotten kitchens now dangle like fruits of memory. Some still bear their pastel enamel, chipped but proud, cradling strawberry vines and flowering herbs. The grape leaves above dance in dappled sunlight, and as bees hum between blossoms, it's easy to believe you've stepped into a dream. These aren't just planters, they are stories. Of meals once cooked. Of hands that once stirred. And now, they bloom. Not far off, a weathered wooden wall becomes a vertical orchard. Rows of hanging metal pans and tin buckets cradle everything from tiny apples to soft violets, lovingly arranged by small, curious hands. Two children explore, touching the earth and fruit like discovering treasure on a magic map. The warmth of the sun glints off aluminum and steel, nurturing life where most would have seen only scrap. This wall, rustic yet radiant, becomes a nursery for imagination and green growth. And suddenly, the idea of vertical gardening feels not just practical, but enchanting. And then, in the hush of the garden's edge, beneath the generous shade of a tree, an ode to simplicity emerges. Old copper pans swing gently from a thick branch. Below them, neat rows of herbs grow in rehomed containers: thyme, mint, spinach, each marked with handwritten labels like secrets passed down through generations. A wooden bench waits nearby, a blanket folded with care. This is the kind of garden where silence heals, where the smell of basil brings back summers long past. A place that feels not made, but remembered. These DIY transformations aren't just clever, they are deeply human. They show us that creativity begins not in a store, but in a shift of perspective. That even rusted cookware, long retired from the stove, still has stories to grow. And that a garden's most precious gift might not be the harvest, but the way it teaches us to see again. So if you find yourself with an old pot in hand, don't throw it away just yet. Instead, picture it hanging from a vine-laced beam, overflowing with cherry tomatoes and wild thyme, catching the light like a quiet jewel. Picture your garden not just as a space, but as a storybook waiting to bloom. If this video made you see trash a little differently, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really helps support our small channel. Which DIY was your favorite? Let us know in the comments. We love hearing your thoughts and ideas. And if you're ready for more creative, eco-friendly magic, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. At Backyard Fortune, we're just getting started.